Breaking news. The previously announced tariffs have completely changed, but the camera industry is now responding to the newest round of tariffs, including canceling plans for factories and raising some prices. I'm going to break it down company by company, but first I'm going to tell you some good news. You can get a fantastic website by going to squarespace.com/Tony. Try it out completely free. And you can see just how powerful a Squarespace website can be. You can take appointments from clients, sell products, prints, show off your photos, your video, or any type of business or personal project. Along with that, you can get a domain name, like I have northrupphotography.com, and that definitely makes you look more pro. Start at squarespace.com/Tony. Get yourself a completely free trial and see just how powerful it is. Then if you decide to sign up, you can use the coupon code Tony and get a discount. Thanks for sponsoring us, Squarespace. Before we get into the tariffs, Fuji is teasing a new camera. Their motto is half the size, twice the story. This is clearly a half-frame vertical camera, not unlike the one that Pentax released recently. Now, Pentax's was a film camera, and I wouldn't be shocked to see Fuji going ahead and releasing a film camera because they actually still produce film, and people are really into this, and it would be super inexpensive to develop a film camera. So it very well could be a film camera. It could also be a digital camera that happens to be vertically oriented. And this is just a clever way to market it. I'm really glad to see somebody producing a vertical camera because we live in a world where almost all social media is consumed vertically, and yet all the cameras that we use are oriented horizontally. It's crazy. On to the tariff fallouts. If you remember in my last news broadcast, I covered Liberation Day, where Donald Trump, the US president, announced this set of tariffs, where China got 34% additional tariffs. Japan, where most camera companies have their headquarters and a lot of cameras are made, had 24% tariffs. And the theories were that this was going to substantially raise the prices. We didn't expect everything to just change overnight. If only some prematurely gray newscaster had been able to predict that things could just change like that. Here's the thing, these tariffs are happening via executive powers. They're not being enforced by laws passed by Congress. And that means that they could disappear as quickly as they appeared. I think it's entirely possible that Trump will roll some of these back in the coming weeks. Okay, it's actually really easy to predict unpredictability in the modern world. The hard part would be predicting which direction it's going to go in. So I'm going to tell you which direction it actually went in. Right now, total China tariffs from the US are 145%, which means if you order a $100 item from China, the total price is going to be about $245. So that is an incredibly high tariff that will mean most Chinese-made products are simply unaffordable in the US. That is devastating to companies that manufacture things in China. And in the camera industry, that's a lot of companies, like all of DJI's drones, and it's a huge bummer because there's not really any other alternative to DJI. Many of the camera companies you know do some or most of their manufacturing in China, like Nikon, Fuji, and Lumix, which is Panasonic. Those items that are manufactured in China are going to have to see literally 2.5 times price increases, which means that they'll probably simply be unaffordable, especially because the stuff that's manufactured in China tends to be the lower end stuff where price is a little bit more sensitive. What we might see is stuff just disappearing from stock in the United States once the inventories that have already been shipped to the country have sold off. So again, if you want one of these Chinese manufactured things, I would jump on it right away. Now that only affects stuff made in China. It doesn't matter if the company is Chinese, it can be a Japanese company. If they manufacture something in China, those tariffs would apply. The rest of the world now, temporarily for 90 days, has a 10% tariff. And theoretically, at the end of that 90 days, we'd go back to this set of tariffs. So there's obviously no guarantee for that because the US administration has said that they are open to negotiations. So maybe these countries will talk to Trump and we'll figure out something better. But for now, the 10% seems pretty concrete and is currently active. So if you were to buy something from Japan right now that costs $100 and it was being imported over right now, you would have to pay $110. So companies are going to have to respond either by taking 10% less profit from their wholesale price or by raising prices some. BlackMagic has said they have to raise prices. But more interesting is that they had a Dallas factory planned and they're canceling the building of that US factory. Here's what they had to say. We were planning to build a new factory in Dallas, Texas to streamline our supply chain and allow us to work more directly with US semiconductor companies. If we proceed with the US factory, we'd incur tariffs on those parts, increasing costs and negating the savings we anticipated. This is interesting because the stated purpose of the tariffs is to move more manufacturing to the United States, but there are things that work against this. If you do manufacturing in the United States, you likely still import a very large number of parts from other countries, especially China, and you will have to pay tariffs on all those individual parts. You just won't be paying any tariffs on the part of the product's value that is built up in the United States. So whatever your labor and assembly costs are, except that there's a catch. Other countries have already or probably will create reciprocal tariffs. So if we charge them a 10% tariff on imports, they will probably charge us a 10% tariff on imports. So if you do manufacture something in the US, you will have to pay tariffs on the rest of the world. So if BlackMagic built a camera in Dallas and somebody in Paris wanted to import it, they would then have to pay tariffs that they wouldn't necessarily have to if they were to build it in China or Taiwan or someplace. I believe we're seeing direct evidence that raising tariffs is not necessarily good for US manufacturing and that it's much more complex. There's a lot of moving parts and individual companies need some stability in order to make their plans. And in this case, a company actually backed out of building a factory. I talked to the manufacturer of small sort of hobbyist cameras that had been creating these cameras in China. And obviously, because they were inexpensive cameras, they could not handle 145% tariff. So they had to shut down their Chinese factory. And now they're looking to set up a factory in Taiwan. Notice they didn't say they're trying to set up a factory in the US. Such factories really don't exist for the time being. And if they were to exist in order to work around these tariffs, it would take a couple of years to build up. So right now, companies are having to move things out of China, which is bad for China, but not necessarily to the benefit of the United States. These tariffs came about really suddenly with no real warning. Like you need 2 weeks notice when you quit McDonald's, but global trade changed just about overnight. And a lot of companies had products that they had announced and were accepting pre-orders for, but had not yet imported into the United States. So the tariff change happened after they set the prices, but before they could actually import them, and they'd have to pay tariffs on this, thus raising their own costs. And Fuji is one of those companies. They had several products that were just accepting pre-orders but hadn't been imported. So if they were to ship those over and honor the pre-order price, they would have to pay a whole bunch in tariffs and quite possibly lose money on this brand new product. So they have sort of stopped taking pre-orders for many items. Here's what they said. In the US market, we have temporarily suspended orders for some digital camera products in order to assess various changes, including tariffs and their impact as cost increasing factors. As a result, we are currently not accepting pre-orders for the X100-6, GFX 100RF, and XM5 Black models. I'm glad Fuji came out and said this openly. Not all the companies are being that open about it. It seems like some Sony pre-orders simply disappeared, but even these 10% tariffs are temporary and promise to change in another 75 days or so. I can't imagine how companies can make pricing changes when you have a 10 to 145% tariff that could be added or could disappear overnight. That makes things really difficult for everybody. Shipping companies are suffering too. DHL does a massive amount of the importing of products into the United States. Like if you were to buy something from DJI, they would probably ship it directly from China to you. They have suspended all US shipping for things over $800 due to recent changes. Anything over $800 will require more scrutiny from customs, probably in order to make sure that everything gets the proper tariffs applied to it. And DHL has just said, we're not ready for this, we're stopping, which means even if you already ordered something, you might not be getting it if it's over $800. It's like every DJI drone would be. And there is supposed to be a new DJI Mavic 4 coming out. And I'm wondering, like, how am I going to get my hands on this and what is it going to cost? Now, DHL says this is temporary. They need to change their processes in order to ramp this up. They will definitely start shipping again at some point, but I would bet the shipping costs will go up substantially because it sounds like their labor is going up. Here's how Canon is responding. They're rumored via CanonRumors.com to raise their prices 7 to 8%. That's not bad. On a 10% tariff, that means they're eating a chunk of it, right? They're actually reducing their profit a little bit, or the profit of the retailer a little bit, in order to keep the costs as low as possible. So thanks for doing what you can with that, Canon. Now, what about everybody else? What about Nikon, Fuji, Olympus? We haven't really heard anything yet, and I don't blame them for that because it is such a fluid situation. This stuff is changing week by week, but product pricing is generally expected to stay the same or go down over the entire life of the product. We really haven't seen companies having to raise the prices of existing products before, but that's the scenario that they're placed in now. And that lack of predictability must be really difficult for the product managers who have to pick prices for things in the US. We're also, for the first time really, seeing a case where US products are going to be significantly more expensive than they are in other countries, probably even more expensive than Europe, which has their value-added tax, VAT, built in. A lot of you in my previous video suggested it might be cheaper for you to take a trip to a foreign country and buy it there and then bring it back to the United States so that you would avoid these tariffs. That might technically be true, especially for more expensive Chinese products, but that would be illegal. You'd be smuggling at that point, right? If you, as an American, were to travel somewhere else and buy something, you would have to declare it and pay tariffs on it, because at that point, when you were flying back to the United States, you would be the importer, right? So I don't encourage anyone to go into smuggling. I don't think it's worth it to save a few bucks on a camera. Now, in the comments down below, go ahead, tear each other apart. I don't care. Get political about it. Tell me what you think. I'm not going to get involved, but I'll be sitting back, eating some popcorn, watching you go at it in the comments, so have fun. And don't forget to thank our sponsor, Squarespace, by heading to squarespace.com/Tony and just checking out what an amazing website can do. It can show off your work. It can make your business look fantastic. It can sell products. It can take appointments from clients. Whatever you can imagine starts at squarespace.com/Tony. During your free trial, choose from one of their gorgeous templates. Get it all set up and just see how amazing it can all be. I promise you'll love it. And after your free trial, if you want to sign up, use the coupon code Tony and that'll save you 10%. Thanks so much, Squarespace. Bye.